Story 1. Move it into a high-yield savings account until the bank requests it back. Then return it. Have a plan to return it even if they do not ask for it. Story 2. If it was legitimate and no one came asking, then pay off my mortgage and cover the costs of a good care home for my dad. Set aside money for my children to ensure their well-being, and then enjoy a nice family holiday. Save the rest so that we can be comfortable, which is all anyone can ask for. Story 3. Call the bank. As much as I would love to spend it, I am not that foolish either. It is a clear scam or error. Story 4. I'll sleep for the first time without worrying about anything. That would be a blissful sleep. That's the first thing I will do. Story 5. No one will believe this story, but here it goes. This actually happened to a friend of mine. He left the bar to use the ATM, and the receipt showed a balance of 26 million. He returned to the bar, and we all had a good laugh. The next weekend rolled around, and no one had seen him. A bit longer went by with still no word from him. We all traveled for work, so it was not a panic situation, but still odd. This was before everyone had cell phones. Finally, someone got news that he was not coming back. The story goes that the next day he went to the bank and said he'd like to close his account and withdraw all the funds. They moved him to an office to start the process of closing the account. When his balance was brought up, it showed the correct amount, not 26 million. He was confused and showed them the ATM receipt. They tried to brush it off as a glitch, but he was persistent. This was in a country with a long history of hiding income for tax purposes. He kept insisting they needed to look more closely and did not let it drop, going on for days. He threatened to get lawyers involved. Eventually, they made a deal that he would get 10% of the balance but had to leave the country. Apparently, the bank was moving the money from account to account every few seconds, so it never showed up anywhere. He just got lucky and checked his balance when it was in his account. Our guess is the bank didn't want any real questions, so they cut a deal. It should have been easy to show it wasn't his money, as there were no deposit records close to that amount. In fact, there were years of history showing his actual transactions. So he took the money and left 2.6 million. He tried to get back into the country and was denied at the border. We never saw him again. That's an unbelievable story, but it happened. Story 6. Pay Reddit to remove all the misleading, "you're instantly a millionaire" questions. It would honestly save them money. There must be substantial storage used on just that Ask Reddit question line alone. Story 7. Lawyer, accountant, and financial advisor. I will explain my goals for myself and my descendants. I also need to update my phone number. Story 8. Consider getting a divorce. Hire multiple lawyers and financial planners. Focus on paying down debt, although that may be less exciting. Invest wisely. Consider quitting your job and allow yourself to indulge occasionally. Story 9. I will probably call my boss and tell her I am really sorry, but I am resigning from my job. My job is nice and my boss is genuinely great, but it is just not my dream. Story 10. If I were Erica Girardi, I would join a Real Housewives franchise and go through it all as quickly as possible before the authorities could stop me. Story 11. Split it and transfer it to various accounts to secure any recalls. Allow yourself to feel emotions, then begin removing all the negativity from your life. Story 12. Transfer the money to a new bank across multiple accounts and close the original. The bank has a problem now. Story 13. Our family experienced a rapid transformation. What did we do? My parents designed and built their dream home. It featured an indoor pool and hot tub, which was significant in Wyoming. There was also a sauna, a top-of-the-line theater with 12 recliners and cup holders, and a bar on the ground floor that included a poker table and a pool table, as well as a dance floor and 2 fully stocked bar areas. The pool had a water slide. The house was almost 30,000 square feet. On New Year's Eve in 2000, we spent weeks in a penthouse in Las Vegas. We had limousines available whenever we needed them and played with $200,000 in cash. Those were good times that eventually came to an end. Story 14. Hire a lawyer. Get in touch with my certified public accountant. Pay off student debt. Buy new pajamas and clothes. Complete career-related training and certifications. Get a new car that is not old enough to drink. Buy a house. Purchase furniture that I like. I could continue, but these are the main priorities. Story 15. Hire a newly retired lawyer to ensure a deliberate pace in proceedings. Sue the bank for false hope and emotional distress. Place the money into escrow until the bank and the clearinghouse can demonstrate improvements in their processes to prevent such errors in the future. Then release the funds back to them. This process should take a couple of months. Story 16. Pay off every cent of my debt. Buy property and a house. Furnish the house. Get my vehicles fixed or replaced. Set up a monthly allowance and put the rest in savings. Story 17. Buy a used car. Get a few months of insulin to protect myself against the loss of the welfare I rely on. Get dental work done. Donate to Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Buy a Nintendo Switch 2 when it is released with Donkey Kong. Consider having a house or place to call home again. Work towards rebuilding my collection of abandoned and lost mementos. Create a room for a keyboard, saxophone, clarinet, vibraphone, and marimba. Set up a room for Zelda, Studio Ghibli, Monster Hunter, figurines, and Dungeons and Dragons. Design a small cozy room with plants and a fireplace, lined with bookshelves featuring series I love, such as Malazan, Hyperion Cantos, Sanderson, and Rothfuss. Money wouldn't make me happy, but it would certainly prevent unhappiness at this point. I dislike what's happening in the world, though money won't help with that. I wish I knew how I could contribute, but frankly, I don't. Everything feels overwhelming right now. Story 18. Freeze the account and call the police. Someone will come looking for that much money, and I want to be sure it is all still there when they do. Story 19. 4-week notice at work. 4-week notice at my wife's work. Account for tax implications. Split half with her. Have a cabin built in a remote part of western North Carolina. Continue my life in the suburbs while my child graduates high school. The plan is to run for the mountains. Invest in treasuries until the market looks stable or I find investment real estate that I like. Story 20. Nothing, because someone will want it back, and I don't want to create a bigger headache than necessary. Story 21. Give $2 million to charity. Distribute it across several notable organizations, with a portion allocated to individuals in need and homeless people. Story 22. Tell the bank immediately. They have made a mistake, and during their audit, they will discover it. If you attempt to withdraw this amount, you could be charged with theft. Once, the bank mistakenly credited $20,000 to my account, and I informed them right away. Story 23. This is an interesting question to consider. I would pay off our home, think about rebuilding it, and ensure my children are established with homes and business ventures that they can sustain for their health and connection to their communities. I would also get a dog and build a large greenhouse for all my plants. Story 24. Well, I'm nearing 60 and I just retired early, so I don't really need money to retire. I don't have any children. My parents are in their 80s and in memory care. I would ensure they receive the best care possible, even if they wouldn't understand it. I'd likely move them back into their home that we are about to sell and arrange for top-notch on-site care, which would give me peace of mind. I would travel to places that attract tourists, where they might overlook me when I spend money, but the conversation would often shift to how troubled the United States is becoming. I can picture myself explaining to others, I didn't vote for that former president. I would support animal shelters and care for my pets, ensuring they and their friends are well taken care of. Additionally, I would consider giving funds to DC Comics to revive Mad Magazine, as it is a priority for me when it is needed the most. Story 25. I'm sorry, but I cannot access external links. However, if you provide the text you would like me to edit, I can certainly help with that. Story 26. After verifying it is not an error, I will be moving most of it to several Swiss banks in a different currency. I do not trust that banks in the United States will be stable over the next year or so, or even that the dollar will be. Story 27. Well, assuming it was valid and meant to be there, donate half to a charity that helps children with cancer and their parents. Story 28. donate 19.5 million to charity, put 30,000 away for my ferrets, buy me a nice house in Montana, and get a large coffin for when I pass. Story 29. Donate at least a few $1,000,000 to causes I care about. Then invest the remaining money in the market and do not touch it for about 20 years. Story 30. That would be cool, but I don't think you can just have 20 million in your savings or checking account. Story 31. Pay every AskReddit moderator $1 million to gain sole control of the subreddit and ban users from asking this question. Story 32. You need to confirm it was a gift and not a bank error. If it was a bank error and you used or transferred it, it could lead to legal consequences. Story 33. Move it to a high-yield savings account. When they ask for it back, those few days of interest will be my bonus for having to deal with it. Story 34. Put it into cryptocurrency, transfer it through Scash. Store it on a hardware ledger and disappear to a warm location but not too warm. Story 35. Not a thing for about 48 hours to see if it went away. If it was a high-yield savings account, 2 days of interest would be approximately $2,100, which would be fine and a lot less trouble than being involved in any sort of money laundering or banking issues that had put it there. Story 36. Pay for a daily, personal hairstylist for my mom. She has always said that if she had the money, she would want someone to wash and style her hair every day. She does not ask for much, and she has done so much for me and my siblings. She deserves it. She also helped me straighten my hair every day in junior high and high school, so I would not have that kink on the back of my crown. She truly deserves it. Story 37. This happened to me. Not exactly 20 million, but out of the blue, I received a check for 18,000 from the Department of Education. There was no explanation, just an envelope with a check. I thought this had to be a scam. I called the Department of Education and explained what had happened. After about 2 hours of nonsense with various people, I finally learned that due to the university I attended going bankrupt and facing numerous lawsuits, I was refunded some of the money I had borrowed and repaid as loans. Story 38. Fly to Italy. Once there, move half the money to an Italian bank account. Buy the villa on my family's vineyard and start restoration on it. Stay for 3 months, then fly home and take responsibility. Get a lawyer, invest, and more. Story 39. At least half in mutual funds or stocks, maybe a quarter buying property for rentals, 2 million into a trust for the child, 1 million in cash, 1 million in precious metals, and have fun with what is left. Story 40. Assuming legitimate and no taxes on the $20 million, I would buy a 30-year treasury bond and earn nearly $1 million per year in interest. Story 41. Call the bank. Oddly enough, things like this happen every now and then, usually due to a mistaken deposit. The problem is that if you spend money knowing it is not yours, it becomes a criminal offense. Story 42. Pay off everything, fly to New York City, and have a team from JP Morgan work out a plan to ensure I am secure and that my close friends and family are set for life. Then disappear on a long vacation, maybe 2 years. Story 43. Call my lawyer, have my lawyer contact the bank, and tell my accountant to move the money out of the bank. If they are foolish enough to give it to me without conditions, I do not want them managing my finances. Story 44. Call the bank because I have enough challenges in my life, and I don't need anything extra, especially legal trouble. Story 45. Hire a lawyer. Tell no one. Anonymously leave gifts to those in need. I have always wanted to foster children, but in today's financial climate, that seems increasingly difficult. I would buy a large farm and start building from the ground up, attempting to reclaim my childhood farm from the wealthy banker who purchased it a few years ago. I would donate a significant portion of my resources and spend the rest of my days in service, finally able to give back. I would need a lawyer to ensure some level of anonymity in all of this. Story 46. I appreciate the suggestion to transfer the funds into a high-interest savings account until I am asked to return them. I would wait 90 days, and if I have not been contacted to return the funds, I will set up a trust through a fiduciary. Story 47. Call the bank and do nothing else. Anything else is stealing. We investigated when a friend had 2 deposits of $100,000 into his business account. It turns out someone believed they were transferring funds to a contractor for renovations. Story 48. Pay off debt. Buy my parents a house and purchase land and real estate in my home country to facilitate retiring there in the future. Story 49. This situation happened to me. I paid my bills for months and realized my account wasn't being deducted, resulting in tens of thousands of dollars. I thought it would catch up eventually. The bank didn't believe me. I showed them statements of my account and credit cards. I ended up emailing a senior administrator at Chase. I received calls from lower-level administrators and finally, it was resolved. Everything was corrected. Supposedly, I was connected to a fund that wasn't monitored. I regretted it but realized they would have noticed eventually, right? Story 50. I know someone who had a six-figure sum placed into an account they did not open. They spent months communicating with the bank until the matter was fully investigated and resolved. Throughout most of this time, the bank assured them that the account was legitimate and that the money was theirs. They were extremely worried that the funds were related to illegal activity and that the rightful owner would eventually come looking for it. In the end, the bank acknowledged its mistake, and the money and account simply vanished with no explanation of their origin. Story 51. Pay off debt and give some of it to my parents so my dad can finally retire. He really deserves it. Story 52. Create a new Reddit account to gain karma by responding to almost every comment to increase engagement, ultimately aiming to sell the account or meet the karma requirements for larger NSFW threads. Story 53. Calculate how much is needed for my family's Christmas fund, upgrade houses, develop a bird sanctuary for my boyfriend and his parrot, enjoy healthy dinners for life, save for car repairs, plan for retirement, create a garden sanctuary, cover makeup costs for life, save for modest yearly vacations, get at least a few manicures and pedicures, afford haircuts, provide my boyfriend with a dental implant, allocate money for friends and in-laws, support my mom and dad, visit Australia, purchase a treadmill and an elliptical, and save the rest for medical bills. I want to be strategic and make financial moves, but I just want to have some fun. Story 54. 1. Assume there is a bank error. If, for some reason, a millionaire passed away and left me money, I would hire a lawyer and a financial advisor. Pay off my house and all my debts. Pay off my boyfriend's house and all my parents' houses. Buy my little brother a house and fund his skiing. Build the community center and my cabin. Build Olivia a cabin and have her come up here. Establish my brewery. Construct my arts and crafts building to share with friends. Story 55. Immediately move it into my money market account and see how much interest I can gain before they notice the error. If it is still there in 20 years, then I will retire early. Story 56. I transfer the money to an account, and I would do it regardless of the commission as long as there are no complaints and no bribery involved at the bank. Then, I try to withdraw it all in cash as quickly as possible, incentivizing others to facilitate the withdrawal. After obtaining the cash, I will leave the continent and won't return for at least 20 years. Story 57. Pay off all my loans, pay off my parents' loans and medical debt, pay off my brother's school loans, and then get back into hobbies like music, video games, and working out and try to go on some dates again. Story 58. Inform the customer that the wait for a refund is between 10 to 14 business days. Although the refund could be processed immediately, it is necessary to follow protocol to ensure everything is in order. Acknowledge their frustration, but explain that this is the best course of action. Then, offer to transfer them to a manager, which may involve putting them on hold for 46 minutes. The manager will provide the same information in a firmer tone. Lastly, ask if they would like to spend 5 minutes completing a survey about their experience and any suggestions for improving our service regarding accidental money transfers. Story 59. I enjoy warm weather, so I would rent a deluxe room at a resort for a month by the ocean in Florida or possibly the Virgin Islands. The resort must have bars, swimming pools, and restaurants. Story 60. Just disappear for a minute. Hold on to where I am. There is not much change in my routine for a short while. I need to figure out who to distribute some to. That's a complicated task on its own. Then, There is a 1977 Firebird Trans AM like the one the bandit drove. Story 61. Put most of it into a savings account that I will leave for my children. I would invest a significant amount and use the rest to pay off my student loans and other debts and to start a business. Story 62. Transfer to assets like cryptocurrency or anything the bank may have difficulty repossessing. Get a tan, grow long hair and a mustache and live in the Caribbean. Learn Spanish. Story 63. Buy a $15 million house and renovate it with $1 million worth of furnishings, along with a few nice cars for $1 million. You have to enjoy it, right? Story 64. The first thing I would do is verify that it is really my money. Once I have verified proof that it belongs to me, I would buy a modest home for myself, give some to worthy causes, and then invest the remainder. Story 65. Put a significant portion of it back into the state where I reside. Locally, ensure it reaches people who are less fortunate to receive such a gift. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.